Hey, what's up everybody? This time I'm gonna talk how to connect to your OCI Compute instance. Three ways what I normally use, three most common ways. So what are those ways I normally use if I don't have access from my own, let's say if I'm connected via Fast Connect or IPsec VPN, then obviously I can use the instance what I might have in on-premise or Citrix. But let's say I don't have those, so three different ways. So one of them is using a Bastion host or server, which is in the public subnet. Sometimes obviously that's not allowed and maybe that's not a good practice to use it. You can also use Bastion Service, so I'm gonna use that. And then third option, what I really like is using the Cloud Shell, because with Cloud Shell now you can use private endpoints as well. So let's take a look on those. So the first way I'm going to show is through the IGW, so Internet Gateway. So that's when I have a public subnet, I have a route to public internet, and I can access the instance through public internet. So also the security list and network security group, they are both configured like so that you can access from your location. So here I actually have already private and public instance available. So you can see here the private one will be our other test case using the Bastion and then the Cloud Shell. And then the public one will be this use case. What's actually nice, I didn't notice this earlier, but here you have this table settings, what you can nowadays click, and you can select which columns are visible for the instances. So for example, if I want to see the subnet, so I'll just add the subnet which on the visible columns list, save the changes, and now I can see the subnets here on the right side, and I can order them as well. So that's pretty handy if you want to see like a little bit more details or a little less details on your instances. All right, so I'll just copy the public IP. I have a terminal here, so I'll just use the terminal. I have a key here as well. I'll use the OPC, which is the default username when you spin up a Oracle Linux instance in OCI. I'll add the public IP here, and then, okay, it will ask, I want to add the key, and then I'll just want to continue. And you can see here, I'm in my public instance. So that's it. Obviously, sometimes you don't have a public subnet available. Sometimes you do, you have a Bastion, like sort of like Bastion server, not the service in a public subnet. Sometimes it's called the jump server. So you can do that if the security policies allow. Maybe sometimes it's not so good because who's gonna keep up the security list and so that they're always up to date, because you definitely don't want to allow people to log in with SSH from everywhere. So that's first method. Now we can take a look on the next one. And the second method I want to show is using the Bastion service. So that needs a little bit more work, but with the Bastion service, you can still connect from your own laptop or desktop, just using a SSH channel. So you can see here, I have my private instance, which is in the private subnet. We can't access it directly from outside. So I'm gonna click it. And then one thing you always want to see if you're gonna use the Bastion service, go on the Oracle Cloud Agent and then click on the Bastion plugin. You want to enable that so you can log in to the server using the Bastion service. So I'm just gonna click it enabled. It's gonna take a while, so I just wanna see that it's running, and then we'll continue with our setup. All right, that took like 10 minutes to get enabled, so I was starting to get a little bit worried already that if there's an issue, but now you can see the Bastion here is running. If I scroll a little bit, you can see it here, it's showing green, running, enabled. So now let's go to the Bastion service and do the setup. So you can find the Bastion service from identity and security, and then here on the right you can see Bastion available. So let's click that. and let's do a setup. So I'll just create a Bastion in the same compartment. You can create another compartment as well. So let's give it a name, TFG Bastion. Then I'm gonna configure networking, so where the endpoint is gonna be. So let's pick up the VCN, what I have, and then the private subnet. So you don't need to have it in public subnet, you can have it in private subnet as well. And then this one, which is really important, so side block allow list, from where somebody can access this Bastion service. So I just have my IP here. I'm gonna add it /38, so it's just this one IP address. So let's add it here, create Bastion, and it's gonna take a little while here. So it's gonna be creating. So I'm gonna pause the video for a time and then let's continue shortly. All right, so that took like a few minutes to get. You can see now the Bastion service or instance, however you want to call it, it's now available or active. So I can go and create a session. So each time I click it, I have to create a session as well, which will be, there's a time to live for each session. I think maximum right now is 3 hours. So yeah, you can see maximum session time to live is 3 hours. I'll create the session, and there's two, like I can create a managed SSH session or then just normal SSH port forwarding. So with port forwarding, you can also forward to other ports like 1521, for example, if you would want to have like a SQL connection over the tunnel. So let's pick the SSH managed SSH session. I'll give it a name, CMO session 1, username, OPC. I'll select the instance what I have in this compartment. So now I'm just gonna use the private instance. I'm gonna paste the public SSH key what I have. This will be for the session. So you will basically have a key for the session and then key for the instance as well. So basically like two authentication keys needed. So let's see what's in the advanced. So here I could, if there's like I want to use another TTL, I could change this. I can select hours, but I think the maximum is still 3 hours. And then if I want to use a different port for the SSH, I could do it. And then if I just wanna have the target instance IP as well. Now when I'm using the managed SSH session, I don't need it. So let's create the session. It's gonna take a while, and once it's done, once it's ready, I can just click here and you can see I can just view the SSH command, copy the SSH command, also delete the session. So let's wait until it's created, and then let's try to log into our server. All right, now you can see the session is active here. The target resource, it's the private instance, and then time to live is 3 hours. Would be nice if they would show how much I still have left, but you can see the started and obviously calculate from there. Sometimes I feel like 3 hours it's not enough. So for me, obviously, since I'm admin in this tenancy, it's easier. But let's say if you would be a developer, you need to access it like every 3 hours, you have to come here and create a new session. So maybe that's too frequent for some. So now I can just view the SSH command. So you can see the private key. Okay, let's copy this. So I need to actually define the private key here for the session, and then also for instance. This time it's easier. I just have a same key for both. So, but it might be that you have a different key for the instance and then different key for the session as well. So let's paste it on here, and then I'm just gonna go and edit the private keys. So this one is for the session. So let's put it here. And then this key is for the server itself. So you can see here in the end port 22, and then I'm just using the private IP of the server. And then obviously this long server name, or the, let's say, the username, and then the host.bastion is the public endpoint what I'm using. So yeah, I'll just say yes. And here we are. Now I'm logged to my private instance. So it's not too bad. Like, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to have the policy and access on the Bastion service and session. Maybe you could set it so that you create the Bastion and then you give access to folks who need to access to create the session. So sometimes if you don't have a private access yet through Fast Connect or IPsec VPN, maybe this is a good way to do it. Next, let's look my favorite way of logging in from these three, which is using the Cloud Shell. So when you log on to the OCI console, you nowadays have access to the Cloud Shell as well. It's been there for a while. Some time ago, Oracle added also private endpoints there, which I think is great. So if we take a look on that, here I have my console open, and then also I can check the Cloud Shell. It's this here on the top right. You can see the Cloud Shell. I can click it and it opens the Cloud Shell. And you have like 5 GB of storage there, what you can use, which is plenty. And this is definitely my favorite way of logging in and you accessing the instances when you quickly need access. Sometimes obviously you want to use your own tools, what you have on your laptop, or developer tools, so then maybe Cloud Shell is not optimal, but just logging in and maybe doing some maintenance or accessing the instances, this is definitely like quick and easy way to do it. And what I like as well is that it's controlled through the OCI IAM policy, so you have to have access to do it. So obviously if you can't log into the console, you won't be able to do this. So when I have the console opened here and in the Cloud Shell, nowadays I can just select which network. So I can do a private network setup. I can select the VCN, then I can select the subnet what I want. So now I'm just gonna select the private subnet. So I'll create a private endpoint there. I could select also network security group for this endpoint if needed. And then I'm just gonna connect, and here on the top left, you can see it's connecting to the private endpoint, or creating the private endpoint. So if I'll take this private IP here, I'll open my Cloud Shell, and then I'll just wait that the endpoint is created. Now I have my private endpoint created, so you can see from here, top left, the network is now private. Otherwise, like by default, it's public. I can click the details, and now, yeah, it shows the VCN, subnet name, all that stuff there. So I can be sure like which private endpoint I'm using. So now I'll just use SSH. I'll define my key, which is the same key here, then OPC, and then I'll just put the private instance IP address here, and let's see. Yeah, there we go. And I'm logged in. So that's super easy, super good way in my opinion to do it. So hopefully that helps you to figure out how to log into your instances. Always think obviously like what are your policies, how you are allowed to access. So even though sometimes you could use services like Bastion, maybe the security policies don't allow to do that. So think first before doing, and make sure that everything is okay. And hopefully these will help you to access your OCI instances more easily in the future. Thanks for watching.